The year was 1558, and England stood at a crossroads. After years of religious conflict, political instability, and uncertainty about the future, a young woman named Elizabeth Tudor inherited the throne. At just 25 years old, she faced enormous challenges. Many doubted whether a woman could successfully rule a kingdom on her own. Across Europe, kings, princes, and powerful noblemen watched closely, expecting the new queen to do what every female monarch was expected to: find a husband. From the moment Elizabeth became queen, advisors pressured her to marry. Parliament repeatedly urged her to choose a suitable husband and produce an heir. They feared that without children, England could face another succession crisis. Foreign rulers saw marriage to Elizabeth as an opportunity to gain influence over England, and proposals soon arrived from every corner of Europe. Princes from Spain, France, Austria, and other powerful nations sought her hand. Elizabeth handled these proposals with remarkable skill. She welcomed ambassadors, entertained negotiations, and listened carefully to every offer. Yet, whenever discussions seemed close to reaching a conclusion, she delayed the decision. Weeks turned into months, and months into years. No matter how promising a match appeared, the queen never committed herself. The mystery fascinated the entire kingdom. Courtiers whispered in palace corridors, trying to uncover her true intentions. Some believed she was secretly in love with Robert Dudley, a handsome nobleman who enjoyed her favor. Others thought she simply enjoyed keeping Europe guessing. Every new suitor sparked fresh rumors, but none could explain why Elizabeth continued refusing marriage. As time passed, her reluctance became one of the most talked about subjects in Europe. Diplomats sent detailed reports to their kings, describing a queen who seemed impossible to understand. While the world speculated about her future, Elizabeth remained calm and confident. Behind her composed smile, however, were memories and experiences that had shaped her views long before she ever wore England's crown. Those hidden influences would ultimately define one of history's greatest royal mysteries. Elizabeth's refusal to marry did not begin when she became queen. The roots of her decision stretched back into a childhood filled with uncertainty, loss, and fear. Born in 1533, she was the daughter of King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. For a brief time, she was treated as a cherished princess, but her world changed dramatically when she was only 2 years old. Her mother was accused of treason and executed on her father's orders. Almost overnight, Elizabeth was declared illegitimate and stripped of many royal privileges. Growing up in the shadow of this tragedy left a lasting impression on her. She learned early that life at court could be dangerous, and that even the most powerful women were vulnerable to the ambitions of men. As she watched her father marry again and again, she saw a pattern of unhappy unions. Some of Henry VIII's wives were cast aside, one died in childbirth, and 2 were executed. Marriage, which many viewed as a source of security, often appeared to Elizabeth as a path to suffering. Her teenage years brought another troubling experience. After Henry VIII's death, Elizabeth lived in the household of Catherine Parr, the king's final wife. There, she came into contact with Thomas Seymour, a charismatic and ambitious nobleman. Seymour's behavior toward the young princess was widely considered inappropriate and caused a scandal that threatened her reputation. Although Elizabeth escaped serious consequences, the episode taught her a painful lesson about trust and the dangers of male ambition. At the same time, she observed the struggles of her half-sister. Mary I Mary's marriage to Philip II of Spain was deeply unpopular in England and created political tensions throughout the kingdom. The union seemed to bring more problems than benefits. These experiences shaped Elizabeth's understanding of power, relationships, and survival. By the time she reached adulthood, she had witnessed enough heartbreak and betrayal to make her cautious. Marriage no longer appeared to be a fairy tale ending. Instead, it looked like a risk that could cost a woman her freedom, her influence, and perhaps even her life. As Elizabeth settled into her role as queen, another layer of mystery began to surround her. While the public saw a confident ruler dressed in magnificent gowns and jewels, rumors quietly circulated among diplomats, physicians, and members of the royal court. These whispers concerned not politics, but the queen's health throughout her reign. Elizabeth occasionally suffered from illnesses that forced her to withdraw from public appearances. In an age when medicine was poorly understood, even minor health problems could spark wild speculation. Foreign ambassadors carefully recorded everything they observed, often sending detailed reports back to their rulers. Some of these reports mentioned periods of sickness, swelling, headaches, or unexplained discomfort. Such observations fueled gossip about whether the queen was physically fit for marriage and childbirth. The 16th century was a time when medical science relied heavily on guesswork. Physicians lacked modern diagnostic tools and often explained illnesses through theories that now seem strange. As a result, every ailment became the subject of debate. Some courtiers began suggesting that Elizabeth might suffer from a condition that made marriage undesirable. Others speculated that she had health problems that could make pregnancy dangerous. One rumor claimed that doctors had discovered physical complications that would make childbirth extremely risky. Another suggested that a childhood illness had left permanent effects on her body. None of these stories could be confirmed, yet they spread rapidly through royal circles. The more secretive the queen remained, the more people speculated. Elizabeth rarely addressed such gossip directly. Instead, she maintained strict control over her public image. She appeared strong, intelligent, and determined whenever she stood before her subjects. By refusing to discuss her private health, she ensured that no one could easily separate fact from fiction. Modern historians continue to debate these rumors. Some believe they were exaggerated by political rivals or foreign observers seeking explanations for her refusal to marry. Others argue that there may have been genuine health concerns hidden behind the palace walls. Whatever the truth, the uncertainty added another intriguing piece to the puzzle of why England's most famous queen remained unmarried throughout her life. As the years passed, the mystery surrounding Elizabeth's unmarried status became one of the most talked about subjects in Europe. The royal court was filled with ambitious nobles, foreign envoys, and servants eager for information, and gossip spread through the palace faster than official news. Every time the queen delayed a marriage negotiation, new rumors emerged to explain her behavior. Some courtiers believed Elizabeth's greatest fear was not marriage itself, but the possibility of pregnancy. In the 16th century, childbirth was incredibly dangerous, even for queens. Many women died from complications during labor, and Elizabeth had witnessed the devastating consequences firsthand. Her own stepmother, Jane Seymour, had died shortly after giving birth to the long-awaited male heir, Edward Vi. Stories of noble women dying in childbirth were common, and the risks were well known. Other rumors were even more sensational. Certain observers claimed that the Queen suffered from secret medical conditions that made marriage impossible or undesirable. A few whispered that royal physicians had advised her against having children because pregnancy could endanger her life. Others suggested that illnesses from her youth had left lasting effects on her health. These claims were rarely supported by evidence, but that did little to stop them from spreading. Foreign ambassadors often contributed to the speculation. Since Elizabeth refused to reveal her intentions, diplomats searched for clues everywhere. A brief illness, a cancelled appearance, or a private meeting with a physician could quickly become the foundation for another story. Reports filled with assumptions traveled across Europe, where kings and princes eagerly sought answers. Elizabeth was fully aware of these rumors. Rather than aggressively denying every claim, she often allowed uncertainty to linger. This strategy worked to her advantage. As long as the possibility of marriage remained open, foreign powers continued negotiating with England and hoping to win her hand. The mystery itself became a political tool by carefully guarding her private life. Elizabeth transformed uncertainty into power. The more people speculated about her reasons, the less they understood her true intentions. And while Europe searched for answers, the Queen maintained complete control over the game she had created. By the later years of Elizabeth's reign, many people had accepted that the Queen would never marry. Yet the question remained, why? Centuries of rumors had produced countless theories, ranging from secret illnesses to hidden romances. However, when historians examined the surviving evidence, a different explanation began to emerge, one rooted not in scandal, but in political calculation and personal experience. Elizabeth had spent her entire life observing the dangers that marriage could bring. She had seen her mother executed, watched powerful women lose influence after marrying, and witnessed how foreign alliances could create unrest within a kingdom. These experiences taught her that marriage was never simply a personal choice for a monarch. It was a political arrangement with enormous consequences. In 16th century Europe, a husband was generally expected to hold authority over his wife. Even as queen, Elizabeth understood that marrying could create pressure to share power with a king or prince. A foreign husband might place England under outside influence, while an English husband could strengthen one noble faction and weaken others, potentially leading to conflict. No matter whom she chose, she risked upsetting the delicate balance that kept her throne secure. Elizabeth recognized something many of her contemporaries overlooked. Remaining unmarried gave her freedom. She alone controlled government decisions, foreign policy, and royal appointments. No husband could challenge her authority or claim power through her position. Her independence became one of her greatest strengths as a ruler. The Queen also mastered the art of turning her unmarried status into a political weapon. By entertaining marriage negotiations without ever reaching a final decision, she kept foreign nations hopeful and engaged. Potential suitors became diplomatic tools, allowing England to gain advantages without committing to permanent alliances. Over time, Elizabeth carefully crafted the image that would define her legacy. She presented herself as the Virgin Queen, devoted not to a husband, but to her kingdom and people. Whether entirely sincere or partly political, the image proved remarkably effective. What many saw as an unusual personal choice was, in reality, one of the most successful strategies of her reign. By refusing marriage, Elizabeth preserved her independence, protected her authority, and strengthened her control over England in ways few rulers had ever achieved. When Elizabeth died in 1603, she brought one of history's greatest royal mysteries with her to the grave. For 45 years, she had ruled England with remarkable skill, transforming a vulnerable kingdom into a major European power. Yet, despite all her achievements, the question that fascinated people most remained unanswered. Why had she never married? In the months following her death, speculation only intensified. Some believed she had secretly loved Robert Dudley throughout her life, but had been unable to marry him because of political obstacles and public suspicion. Others argued that painful childhood experiences had convinced her never to trust a husband with power over her. There were also those who continued to repeat rumors about hidden illnesses or physical conditions that supposedly influenced her decision. The problem was that Elizabeth had left very few clear answers behind. She was a master of secrecy and understood the value of keeping others uncertain. Throughout her reign, she carefully controlled information about her private life, revealing only what served her political interests. As a result, historians are left with fragments of evidence rather than definitive proof. What is beyond dispute is the extraordinary legacy she created. Under her rule, England experienced cultural growth, military success, and increased international influence. The period became known as the Elizabethan Age, a time associated with exploration, literature, and national confidence. Her decision to remain unmarried became a central part of that legacy. Over 4 centuries later, books, documentaries, and historians continue to debate her motives. The enduring fascination comes from the fact that no single explanation fully solves the mystery. Personal trauma, political strategy, fear of childbirth, health concerns, and emotional attachments may all have played a role to some degree. Perhaps that is why the story continues to captivate audiences. Elizabeth defied the expectations of her era and chose a path few believed possible for a woman ruler. Instead of securing power through marriage, she built it through her own intelligence, determination, and political skill. In the end, the greatest secret of the Virgin Queen may not be why she never married, but how successfully she turned that decision into one of the most powerful symbols of her reign, leaving the world wondering for more than 400 years.